Dyer wave
3.
Our anthropology is not derived by human psychology or, empirical data from
Dyer wave
3.
Science comes out of medieval universities. This may be totally lost on modern people, but no, actually modern science comes out of universities. Guess where universities come from? Byzantium. What is the theology of Byzantium? Orthodoxy. The longest running empire, the most successful economic empire in the history of the world was Orthodox. It was Byzantium. So we give universities, we give civilization, all these things come from the treasures of Orthodoxy. So I would say that
What's up, all you Chad nerds? Welcome. It's time to go back in the time machine. Somebody said, I hope that Jay does a good analysis of David Lynch. Bro, do you know who was breaking down David Lynch before anyone else? Me. Who wrote gigantor analyses of Twin Peaks before anyone else? Me. Who predicted and called the entire series accurately before season 3 came out in my old analysis? Me. Because once Mark Frost put out the book, what was it all about? Crowley, secret societies, SCX magic, all the stuff I said it was about. So you better believe that I'm the pioneering cool guy analyzing David Lynch. And I didn't just start this yesterday. I wasn't Lynchian yesterday. We did these breakdowns over 10 years ago, dog. We did these 10 years ago, son. But I got some treats for y'all tonight. We haven't broken down Blue Velvet ever. We haven't broken down Inland Empire ever. I haven't done a podcast or discussion of Lost Highway in 10 years. And back then I could barely even talk. Sounded like a dang retort when I was talking on podcasts, trying to make it happen. You gotta make it happen. Thank you.
Lynch pilled.
I was Lynch pilled before all of y'all. Look at all of that. Look at that is a fine cup of Joe. Way to go, Coop. That is a fine cup of Joe. A-OK, Buster. Inquirer, $10. You said before that you asked Calvinists and Presbyterians questions that they couldn't answer. I love how like a David Lynch stream just start getting that people just ask the theology questions. I'm just joking. It's okay. You asked questions they couldn't answer. At that time when I was Reformed, I was asking questions about Augustine. What did he mean in City of God when he said this and that? I started reading about the canon of Scripture, and that's primarily what I meant. I had questions about the Calvinist interpretation of things from Cyprian. I went and read Cyprian, and they were totally lying about what Cyprian said, or they were just totally ignorant. So that's what I was referring to. Justin Washek has taken the cake today with a $500 super chat. Look at that. We don't even got to do no stream today. He just paid for the whole stream. See y'all. Peace out. I'm outie. He done paid for the whole stream and next stream with that one. Shout out to all y'all. Gifted memberships, everybody's being generous. People love these YouTube memberships. I just can't believe how much more popping off popular they are than they were 5 years ago when I was last time I remember being monetized. So things have changed. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the fourth hour of Lord Voldemort today. I think it came out pretty good. I had no idea what I was going to talk about until right before it. And then I was just like, grab a book and just start yapping. So I think it turned out pretty good though it was about a half an hour. So shout out to the new members. We got Whiskey Jack became a member. Shout out to him. Moral Autist, formerly G.W. Barfer. That's some serious names going down right there. Became a member. Austin became a member. Ryder Grenier became a member. Miss Apostate Repentant gave out 5 memberships. We got big money just throwing it around in the chat. Just straight up Daddy Warbucks in the chat. Jay thinks he can do a Sam. What's a Sam? What are y'all even talking about? What is do a Sam? Don't mute him. I want to know what he's talking about. Do a Sam. I've been doing live streams for ages, bro. What are you talking about? You talking about Sam Hyde, Sam Shamoon, Sam A.L.? Who's a Sam? Thomas Libby became a member. Shout out to Thomas Libby. What's up, man? How you doing? This is the year of the love and the love hammers. Sam Shamoon? I don't know what that means. Can you do a Sam Shamoon? What? Oh, his name is Sam, and then he put Shamoon. I don't get it. We're going to be diving deep today. We're going to be diving into stuff that we haven't talked about, again, in about 10 years. And if you don't know, both Esoteric Hollywood 1 and 2 have extensive Twin Peaks and Mulholland Drive analyses. So we're going to do a little bit of refreshing, going back into some of that. We're also going to look into some material that I've never analyzed before, like the Inland Empire analysis. And guess what? There will be some of this in Esoteric Hollywood 3. So look forward to that. What are you talking about? I think I can do us. Robin, I co-wrote the first 2 episodes of the Sam Hyde Show. What the fuck are you even talking about? I don't understand. It's like, I guess everybody's people are jealous. Or what's the problem? Francis Boulet, $4.99. I can't pay you 500 pounds, but here's a little bit to help. And prayers. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Welcome. Justin's already paid for everybody's your fees. Your fees were already due, and Justin done covered all of y'all. His imputed righteousness is sent into your fictional bank account. So you are made righteous in my sight as your spiritual legal judge. I am your judge. And you all have been made righteous tonight through his generous actions. Yo, Jay, how can I cop a Quasimodo $10? Are you talking about your little brother on your shoulder? Are you referring to the possibility of obtaining a lump on your shoulder, which you could personify as a little brother? In that case, I would say look into ways to attain cancerous growths, and then you'll have a little bro on your shoulder. What's up? Welcome, everybody. All right, I loved it. I'm so glad to be remonetized. It's like the work gets... It's like I get a paycheck again for the work, you know? I'm not like working for free or whatever. I'm kidding. Y'all were very generous on Streamlabs. And you can still use Streamlabs if you choose to. Our buddy here, Big Justin. Let me refresh this. He says, you were instrumental in my conversion from Orthodoxy to Protestant. I can't thank you enough. Many happy, healthy years to you and Jamie for your marriage. Thank you again. Bro, thank you, man. You just paid for the whole year, dog. Only bad news is it all goes to the IRS. Jamie's in there laughing. But it ain't no joke. It's like, no, that really does go to the IRS. What you talking about? Can Trump hurry up and sign an executive order so I don't have to send all of this to the IRS? Could he just get rid of this thing right now? Trump, where you at? I'm dragging my feet. The wonderful IRS. We're going to do a new IRS. It's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to bring in 20 times more money. The IRS. Have you heard of this? The ERS. Does it irk? More like the irk. Does it irk you? The IRK. Irk you? We got to get rid of it. Probably we will get rid of the IRS. I don't know what you think. Probably we will. Preemptive pardons for that $500. That's what I'm talking about. 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 In dreams I dream of you. How's it go? In dreams I walk with you. Shout out. I'm gonna get an IRS t-shirt. I want the agents to sign it. Everybody's obsessed with James Bond and secret agents. I'm obsessed with money agents. That's where the real money's at. Where are the secret IRS agent signatures? That's what I'm talking about. That's a real James Bond. James Government Bond. Because he works for the IRS. Oh. Who are all this? What is all this Sam talk? I don't even know what you're talking about. Are you talking about Sam Shamoon? And why is everybody talking about Sam in the chat? This ain't the Sam show. I'm so jealous of all the Sams. They're all I can't be the Sams. What if I was Sam Hyde Shamoon and I was a morphed mix of those two, and I just did weird comedy to the Muslims? What would that be like? Sam Hyde Shamoon. Somebody make an AI blended image of Sam Hyde Shamoon, and then worlds will collide. Worlds collide. In dreams I walk with you. Yeah, I look just like Sam Shamoon. Sam Hyde Moon. Sam Shem Hyde. Sam Shamide. Sam Hyde Shamoon sounds like a great combo. Why is YouTube doing ads on a live stream? To pay my bills, dog. Well, that's why. Because in dreams I'll walk with you and you walk with me, son. Shout out to Free Kittens. No, that's the dude that asked for Quasimodos. He was trying to cop a feel on a Quasimodo. He wants a little brother on his side right here. Reynaldo Lopez isn't a member. Shout out, man. But we already racked up like 150 members in a few days, man. Shout out. Creed. How would Creed sing Roy Orbison songs? In dreams, I walk with you. That's pretty good, actually, until I messed up. Let's see. Now, we're not going to start with Elephant Man. We're not going to start with Eraserhead. I'm just not really in the vibe for something weird and that level of weird and dark. Let's start out with Blue Velvet. And this is back in the early days of David Lynch. My favorite David Lynch, it's hard to say. I mean, I like Twin Peaks a lot. Probably Twin Peaks. And I like Wild at Heart a lot. That makes me laugh. And Dune. So probably ones that people don't expect. There's a lot of good David Lynch stuff. But he's one of my favorites. BL says for $5, did David Lynch go to heaven? I hope so. We don't know people's destinies, but we can always hope that people repented. Bob Johnson, $5. Have you seen the movie Scanner Darkly? Of course. It has Keanu Reeves, Robert Downey Jr., and a person you might have heard of called Alex Jones that I talked to today. And I hosted a show. So you're asking me if I've seen Scanner Darkly. Bro, I was on the damn show of the guy in the movie today. What you talking about, son? Do the entire show in David Lynch's voice. A-okay, bud. Will do. Mr. B, $10. Y'all just sending so much money, I can't even think, man. We've already got like $700 on the stream. We ain't even started yet. The stream's already paid for, man. I ain't got to do it now. Mr. B, I'll send you a love letter. Straight from my heart, mother effer. Talking rated R. Cuss words. Cussing. Every day I'm struggling. Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm struggling. Says for $100. Jay, I'm reading the Old Testament. The Orthodox baptism is coming up at Pascha. I totally understand Christianity's superiority to Judaism philosophically, but I'm wondering, on the basis of Scripture in the Old Testament, how do you wrestle with doubts about if Jesus is the Messiah, and what is your answer? No, because we've done many, many, many talks that deal with this issue. For example, the talk that I did first, I would start off with is Trinity, Old Testament. I always forget the title of this one. And then there's a newer, updated version. First of all, you'll want to watch this one, is the newer one here. Trinity in the Old Testament, Part 1. I go through the Torah, and I just made the Part 2 available to subscribers over here, members over here, for the members tab. Where's the old one? This stuff never comes up. Here it is. No, that's not it. Another one is Trinity and Deity of Christ in Ezekiel. Once you see the Trinity of the Old Testament, it's going to all make sense. It's going to be obvious. And Let me try this. I know it says something like Jesus. Is Jesus God or something like that? Let's see. In dreams I walk with you. This is it. Is Jesus God? Is God a Trinity? Response to critics. That's the first one we did 6 years ago, where I walk through tons and tons and tons of Old Testament texts. But the updated version, the Trinity in the Torah, is even better because I go through many, many, many that I missed in that old talk right here. So those are two places to start. And then on top of that is we've done at least 2 or 3 podcasts on Messianic prophecies. And it's not the handful that evangelicals think, right? It's way more. So go watch those podcasts. A couple of those I think we did with Shamoon. Sam Hyde Shamoon. So here's one from 5 years ago. These might be the same. I don't know, but here's a clip. Messianic prophecies. There's 2 hours, 20 minutes. Here's another one I did. Messianic prophecies, part 1. This is just the Psalms, right? So there's some answers to that. Big fat super chat. Thank you for that. Appreciate all the generosities tonight. Gender hostilities tonight. Welcome everybody. We got 500 on a nice balmy January evening. Let's get into Blue Velvet. This is early David Lynch, first sort of big level of success. Now, I think he was already kind of known for Elephant Man and that kind of stuff. But so, Lynch had early success, probably earlier than most directors expect to get. And then we get this very odd auteur outing. Blue Velvet, Kyle MacLachlan, Laura Dern, Dennis Hopper. Robert Loggia was supposed to play Crazy Frank. He got really mad that he didn't play it. And then I think that's why he put him in Lost Highway. Vane says for $5, maybe it is your internet, but the last several streams, the camera's choppy. Yes, this has been a long-standing problem with the internet in Florida. I've had the people out here more times than we can count. And I don't know why it does that I don't know. YouTube's always telling me that I need to up the bit rate. When I up the bit rate, it just messes everything up. So I don't know. And this has been an ongoing problem for years. So I'm at a point where I just don't even know what to do. Don't know what to tell you. Maybe there's not a solution. Because if I switch over to the bigger, higher connection, because we have so-called 5G, it still doesn't work. In dreams I walk with you. From an article when Wild at Heart came out, Lynch gave Laura Dern animal kits and insects to take apart for her to put back together. This scared her. Well, David Lynch is a weirdo. I don't think anybody can deny that he was an oddball. I bought you some animal kits and bug kits for you to take apart and then put them back together. Anyway, now I think this did well at Cannes, and was he already dating Isabella Rossellini? I don't remember at this time, or was this where they met, perhaps? I don't know all the perfect details of his life, so you'll have to forgive me about that. But I'm not a huge fan of Blue Velvet. I think probably that'll surprise a lot of people. It's hard to watch. It's kind of a brutal film. It's dark, and I don't mind, for example, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. Like, I can watch Fire Walk with Me, but I'm not a huge fan of Blue Velvet. I understand that it's a well-made film. The cinematography, the absurdities. Crazy Frank is probably one of the best villains in all movies ever. He's probably one of the top villains. Thank you for that, by the way, John. Mr. B says for $10, Michael Ironside was also considered for the role of Frank. Could you imagine that? Imagine hearing "Don't Be a Good Neighbor" in Sam Fisher's voice, Thomas Libby became a member. Lil Gain became a member. We got a member upgrade. We got some Chad members now. We got Chad nerds, and then people update to full Chad. $10 is the full Chad. This is a coming of age film, and the first thing I think people notice is the darkness under the perceived facade of Americanism. And this will be a theme that runs all the way through Lynch films. You have what appears to be 50s suburban America, and people are out, watering the yard, and there's the milkman and all this kind of stuff. And then you've got a severed ear laying in a yard. And we enter the ear, if I recall. JV free for $2. Bring Jay a double espresso. Yeah, you know what's up. You know how it works around here. Shout out to that dude. Thank you guys again for all these generous super chats today. If you would hit like as well, we got to get them likes up. And so it's intended to be a critique of what we think of as perfect Americana in the 50s suburb era, but it's also an 80s movie, but there's nothing really in terms of the vibe or the aesthetic or the feel of the movie that makes us think it's the 80s. Even though it's the 80s, and we know it's the 80s, everything is 50s. And I've always liked that juxtaposition that sort of throws us off. And I think a lot of movies since this time have tried to copy this. If you watch, for example, and not always bad. It's not a bad copy. If you watch It Follows, it's very difficult to exactly place when it's happening. It Follows is contemporary, but no one uses or has cell phones, even though it's contemporary. And the TVs, the imagery, a lot of it's 80s, so it kind of has this 80s horror feel to it. But it's contemporary, and yet nobody has a cell phone, which I liked. And, Colin McLaughlin is coming of age, and he's experiencing changes in his body, and he's interested in girls. And he's a high schooler. I forget exactly if he's like a senior, maybe he's a senior. But he really likes Laura Dern, and they're obviously kind of a perfect match. She's also a high schooler. And yet, he is obsessed with the lounge singer at this local club, who's played by Isabella Rossellini, who ends up being his girlfriend for many years. Maybe they were married, I can't remember. And if you don't know, Isabella Rossellini is, of course, Ingrid Bergman's daughter. So, Hollywood royalty. David Lynch was able to immediately link up with Hollywood royalty right there. And you'll notice other themes that are present here that will reappear throughout the rest of the Lynch canon. The ominous, omnipresent red curtain. Of course, the curtain comes up in Mulholland Drive. The curtain comes up in Twin Peaks, in The In-Between. As well as even kind of the lounge singer, right? Because we get Julie Cruz in Twin Peaks, and we get Nohai Bando and that weirdo Hispanic booby chick singing in Mulholland Drive in front of the curtain and doing the sort of lounge singing. So there's a weird lounge theme going on, and also kind of the voyeuristic thing. Right? The voyeurism is kind of a theme in this, and other elements that we probably can't really discuss over here on the YT. But I think if we see this as it's a horror satire, really, is what I think this movie is. And you'll notice a lot of things that sort of tie into Twin Peaks. The Lumberton, I think, is a connection to the sawmill, Josie Packer's sawmill. All of the the critique of the dark underbelly is also a big part of Twin Peaks. But we have this villain that is, and this of course is the scene at the beginning, as we said, where everything seems normal and healthy. And then through his fascination and obsession, you could say, with Isabella Rossellini, he's immediately sort of set on this adventure with all of these weirdo quacks, creeps, and lunatics. Because, of course, Isabella Rossellini is the lover, girlfriend to Dennis Hopper, who plays Crazy Frank. And originally, Crazy Frank's sort of tick was supposed to be that he inhales nitrous oxide. And that's supposed to make him talk in that helium voice. They all felt it was too absurd. And Dennis Hopper said it was too difficult to constantly talk in helium voice and play Crazy Frank. But that would have actually been pretty funny, because if you recall in, I think, Wild at Heart, we get the return of people just out of nowhere having helium voice, which is very absurdist. But instead, Dennis Hopper said, no, it's got to be sodium amytal or something like that, which kind of makes you feel loopy and crazy, I think. And he said, I got to play Frank because I am Frank. I am this crazy wacko dude. And I think, let's see, his father was OSS, so that there's a weird thing with Dennis Hopper background being OSS. Dean Stockwell there, who is the woman clothes wearing person who doesn't actually sing, but pantomime mouths the Roy Orbison song. And for some reason, Crazy Frank has this obsession with watching him pantomime the song. It's all super bizarre, because Crazy Frank is literally like just totally crazy. Weird fixations, has a fixation on, shall we say, smacking ladies around, so to speak. And in Isabella's case, she's into this. Hit me, don't hit me, hit me, don't hit me, as she says to Kyle MacLachlan. And this throws Kyle MacLachlan for a loop, because he's just a young guy thinking about, oh, here's a, attractive older woman. I'm going to get wild, have some fun here. And he's immediately thrown into, how shall we say, sex weirdness. And he doesn't know how to process this. But his stepping into that domain, that temptation, leads him down this road of almost dying by falling in with this crowd of absolute lunatics. And I think that's the best part of this film. And by the way, the same sort of demonic insanity of wearing lady things and makeup seems to also be part of Frank's psyche, right? And I guess we're supposed to just think Frank is this he's kind of a drug dealer, or maybe a kind of a gang, but his gang is just the most just insane, outlandish bunch of weirdos, right? So he definitely makes, I think, for the greatest villain, probably one of the top villains of all time. And I love, we begin to see, I mean, you kind of saw some of this in Eraserhead, but you begin to see things that will become staples in later Lynch films, like just the random weirdos in the background. You've got this fat chick over there, this dude standing on the couch. You get Dean Stockwell pantomiming Roy Orbison songs, singing into a lamp. Dennis Hopper's obsessed with it. Just the background weirdos, right? Just that is almost enough. Like, there's a guy back there playing with tape, and the absurdism comes to the fore here to make this also a very funny film. A lot of people don't think about David Lynch movies as comedy, but they're actually really comedic. And if you've only watched Wild at Heart like once, go back and watch it, because the more you watch Wild at Heart, the funnier it becomes. And of course, I'm not going to spoil it for you if you've never seen it, but it's a great film. On certain levels, it's just not my favorite David Lynch film. There might be some Rosicrucian symbolism going on, because the rose imagery does play kind of a key element in the film. And I think at the very end, we see Kyle MacLachlan comes home after all this nightmare adventure that he's been on. and he goes on, going on this joyride with Frank, and Frank says to Jeffrey, "You're like me. We're the same." And then Jeffrey ends up killing Frank, and it ends on the ear and the bird. And I think the point here is that bird is actually the same. It's like very similar to the bird at the beginning of Twin Peaks. So it's kind of like Blue Velvet, kind of sets the stage for the next phase of Lynch. Yeah, I forgot to mention. Yeah, exactly. So we're talking about Hollywood royalty and intelligence agencies. We can't forget that Bruce Dern and the Dern family, they come from a long line of actual Skull and Bones, Henry Luce, OSS people, right? So Laura Dern's, I think, granddad was part of he was like the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of War back then. And that is significant. Dave McGowan makes note of this in Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, because he connects both Bruce Dern, the father or the uncle, I forget which it is, but the one that was like Secretary of War, and then the Derns being kind of Hollywood royalty as a result. You've got Hopper's dad being OSS, and we don't know if this is true, but there's reports that Dennis Hopper was also interested in the OTO, and Dean Stockwell was reportedly a member of the OTO. So quite a bit of Hollywood royalty and OTO Crowleyan stuff going on from the outset here. But we're going to move on to Wild at Heart is a version of... Oh, wait, I've already pulled up. Excuse me. Wizard of Oz. So if you didn't know, Wild at Heart is Wizard of Oz. This is a few years later. We get the 1990 film. We're gonna do Twin Peaks. I know that's 1990 to 92, but I wanted to mention Wild at Heart because this one is more of a comedy, and of course, Laura Dern's mom plays Laura Dern's mom in the film. Nicolas Cage plays the character of Sailor perfectly. It's a very absurdist satire of America and Americanism once again. And here, America is Oz. So you have the Wizard of Oz motif pasted onto this absurdist presentation of another adventure of these these two teenage rebels that kind of run away from the controlling figure of Laura Dern's mom, and then these other, what we later find out are mafia people in the background. There's a lot of occultic stuff going on in Wild at Heart that is worth mentioning. We're not going to delve too deeply into that because I'm going to put that in Esoteric Hollywood 3. There will be some discussion of this. And, I mean, there's voodoo comes up. There's this sort of Illuminati character in the film who, I think he's a sort of maybe a Southern Dixie Mafia type of character. And eventually he calls for the assassination of Sailor, and Willem Dafoe I think plays a very this won the Cannes Film Festival. I forgot that. So he won Best Picture in Cannes at 1990 for this. But Willem Dafoe plays a kind of demonic another villain in the film. But ultimately it's a satire. It's very funny, and voodoo plays a key role in the film. And we also see characters that kind of reappear later when they are at the Texas ranch where the, shall we say, the piggy movies are made. There's a character that walks by in the background who appears to be the cowboy. And the cowboy makes his odd appearance, as everyone knows, in Mulholland Drive. Now, I don't know if it's the same actor, but it's almost like there is this overlap of the dream worlds and the various universes, so to speak, in all throughout David Lynch films and throughout the Lynch canon. And greatest example of this, how does Wild at Heart end? Well, it ends with Laura Palmer as the good witch Glinda, because remember it's the Wizard of Oz story, appearing to Sailor when he gets beat up. And I think that's something that not many people point out about. I mean, if you're a really big Lynch nerd, you will know about and you will have paid attention to the overlap throughout the Lynch universe. And another example is Audrey Horne. If you remember in Wild at Heart, there's this scene where Sailor and what's her face, they're driving across the lost highway in the desert, and they come across a wreck, and it's Sherilyn Fenn from Twin Peaks, right? And she's had this head injury, and she doesn't know what's going on, and it's as if this might be when Audrey Horne leaves Twin Peaks to go to Hollywood. Is this her going on her way and then encountering Sailor and Laura Dern? Is that a possibility? Not many people, I don't think, have noticed this or mentioned this, but this is a common feature in Lynch films. So when Nicolas Cage, Sailor's beat up, and he's about to give up, you get Laura Palmer as the good witch Glinda, who tells him to get up and run to Laura Dern, right? And then keep in mind this notion of the worlds overlapping. I thought this was going to be the scene where we see Sherilyn Fenn in Wild at Heart. Let's see. Yes, here it is. Now, if you're a super duper David Lynch nerd, then you have noticed this, but I've not really seen anybody else noticing this. So you'll notice as Sailor and Lula are driving down the Lost Highway, it looks just like Fred Madison at the beginning of Lost Highway, right? He's driving on this desert, upside down ether, inside the ether, in the middle of nowhere, desert highway. And then they come across the wreck where Sherilyn Fenn has this head wound. And you're going to notice head wounds also recurring themes in David Lynch movies, because when we get to Lost Highway, the Balthazar Getty, Balthazar Getty character, Pete, relates. Doesn't he also have a head wound too? And this relates to kind of his dissociative state. The characters are oftentimes in sort of fugue states and dissociative states due to head wounds. And here, again, I don't know if this is intended to be Audrey Horne wandering away on her way to California. But in Twin Peaks, when she decides to leave, wasn't she going to California to be an actress or something? And then, of course, she dies, and presumably it is supposed to be Audrey Horne. But that's speculation. But I do want to go to Lost Highway, because now things are getting a little more esoteric. And then we're going to go to Twin Peaks, and again, a lot of overlaps. And in Lost Highway, we have, of course, this man, Robert Blake playing the Man in Black, or this sort of enigmatic, demonic entity. Fred Madison is played by Bill Pullman, who, in the first half of the film, we think, oh, this is just sort of a successful Hollywood musician who starts having these really weird things happen to him. He starts receiving these VHS copies appearing at his doorstep, And the VHS are images of people walking inside of his house and taping him while he's asleep at night. And so they bring in these cops, and it's very confusing, and nobody can seem to figure out what's going on. And we find out that Patricia Arquette, who's sort of the girlfriend, wife character to Fred Madison, she has been cheating. And so as we begin to piece this together, we'll come over to my analysis. I noted that it's, although this mystified most people, what connects it is the rest of the David Lynch films and the patterns that we'll notice. The doubling, the dissociation, the fugue states, the MPDDID. Let me see what I got into. Shamanic journeys, I think, are a good way to understand Lynch films. So we're going on a kind of a psychedelic journey. And that's the intention, I think. And that's why they are stories that are pieced together out of David Lynch's transcendental meditation dream states, and or both. And so they're going to be non-linear. They're going to be influenced by a lot of 1940s, 50s noir, especially things like Sunset Boulevard, other films like Persona. And those are keys to understanding the architecture and the layout, so to speak, of how to understand a David Lynch film. We're also going to need to understand and be aware of things like Hindu philosophy and metaphysics. That's going to be a big element in Lost Highway. Tibetan Buddhism is a key to a lot of things, especially Twin Peaks. And then other conspiratorial motifs, I think, that Lynch doesn't explicitly talk about a whole lot, do play into his films, such as the notions of alternate personalities, trauma-based mind control, which are never explicit, but I think they're in the background. And one of the reasons I think that I'm right in that analysis was that when I did my lengthy Twin Peaks breakdown many years ago, to me, that was there in a lot of the symbolism throughout the first two seasons of Twin Peaks in the film. And then again, as you guys know, as we pointed out many times, when Mark Frost put out the History of Twin Peaks book, the big green book, that was all vindicated. Multiple chapters detailing the entire history of Twin Peaks as an esoteric occult presentation. We have mentions of Crowley, SEX magic. Literally all of the stuff that I said was 100% spot on. If you read, and Mark Frost is the co-writer with Lynch. So for those that don't know, it's the big green. I'm trying to remember the exact title of the book. I don't have it at this house. Let's see. It's Twin Peaks History. If you are a Twin Peaks nerd, it'll be then you will want the Secret History of Twin Peaks by Mark Frost. It's actually it's a cool big hardback green book right here. Yeah, it's really good. And most of what I theorized was 100% vindicated, even to the point of like the ring being kind of a Crowleyan magic ring. Like even that was mentioned. I was like, man, I just got everything correct on this one. But back to Wild at Heart. So Fred Madison is experiencing the suppressed, this is my theory, memories of murdering Patricia Arquette. So his wife, who had cheated on him, he'd had enough of it. He is the result of her early demise, but he's almost dissociated and repressed these memories. Like they're out of his head, right? So he's so repressed these memories that he's dissociated and actually does not remember doing it. And the VHS copies of the stalker that appear at his doorstep, they either are or are not him, or just his memories of the pieces of the evidence of what he did coming back to haunt him. And so this is all suppressed and sort of hidden, so to speak, in his subconscious. And it's too much a guilt for him to face up to. The murder of his wife, Renee, and 2 others due to this vengeful jealousy is what led to a dissociative split in his consciousness. And his dark side became possessed. And so the man in black that we see at the party is essentially, it's the devil. The first scene is an anxious Fred lighting a cigarette. The igniting of a flame is a staple of Lynch films, and it signifies this dark foreboding or evil presence that's about to emerge. And I know I was not happy that David Lynch passed away, but of course cigarettes happened to unfortunately be what led to his passing. So don't smoke cigarettes. The fire walk, right? Fire walk with me, the lighting of the fire of a cigarette. This is the shamanic practice, right, when you're fire walking. And that is done supposedly through a demonic power, tapping into the spirits to be able to walk on fire, right? So it's either a possession or a demonstration of demonic power. And thus it also corresponds to the walk or the journey that the medicine man or the shaman takes, right? One shouts out between the worlds, fire walk with me. That's a shamanic phrase. The famous Twin Peaks phrase, right, is about the shamanic journey. Now, I'm not into that really. I've read quite a bit about it. I've had my past times of bad acid trips. I've had enough of those. So I've done the fire walk, so to speak, and I've been on the shamanic quests. I have no desire to go back on a shamanic quest. They were pretty nightmarish in my experience. But I have called out between 2 worlds. Don't fire walk with me. And I think if you have done hallucinogens, maybe David Lynch films do come easily to you. They come more naturally, I guess, than if you have not. But the idea, I think, is that it's an astral journey of the shaman as well in terms of the viewer. And it can be a hallucinogenic or a spiritually induced state, taking you down a ritual path of, in the case of the shaman, a personal dismemberment and then reassemblage. That's a resurrection motif. And I'm not just saying that. I've got a giant, big fat academic text I've read on shamanism. It's Oxford publication on the history of shamanic traditions. And they actually say that in the book, that's the common pattern in an archetypal sense across various shamanic traditions, is that the shaman has to be eaten by the gods, spit out, and then put back together. And it's a resurrection motif, a death barrel resurrection motif that we find in shamanic religions and traditions. In Lynch's film, it is Fred, or our shaman, who will be resurrected. His wife, Renee, is the one that will undergo this dismemberment, and it is Fred who will suffer the punishment of guilt and torture with no escape from this self-imposed cyclical nightmare prison. And you'll notice that Rosanna Arquette is pictured in this sort of Scarlet Woman motif, sort of maybe a Crowleyan image, I'm not sure. But if you've read the Sinister Forces trilogy, Peter Levendis says, this is quoting David Lynch in an interview, "I learned that just beneath the surface there's another world, and still different worlds as you dig deeper." And so for the artist, Lynch, I think, sees himself as a shamanic adventurer who is plumbing the depths of the subconscious. This is what he believes he's doing in transcendental meditation. And then drawing out of these worlds or these realms an idea that, as Lynch says in interviews, becomes a whole world. So you catch an idea, and that idea brings with it this string of pearls of other ideas and associations. You have an idea of, I don't know, Naomi Watts opening a box, and then you need the music that goes with that. And does this box open up a whole nother alternate reality? This kind of stuff. So there is a sort of Hindu multiverse idea going on. Perhaps that's also in Tibetan Buddhism. I'm not sure 100%. I'm not super studied on, I know a little bit about Tibetan Buddhism, but I think they have this kind of view of multiple worlds or something. But that's where Lynch is pulling from. I definitely know that exists in Hindu thought. And Hinduism is really a key to Inland Empire. I decoded a lot of Inland Empire. But I did find another guy's video who went way beyond me, and he got it all. So like some dude like devoted some legit time and literally has decoded Inland Empire. It's pretty wild too. I mean, like the level of, I mean, I don't care about Hinduism per se, but like the level of Hindu lore and theology and metaphysics that this guy went into, or maybe he knew, to decode Inland Empire was pretty intense. And I'll show you this video in a moment. You guys can go watch that. I will cite that guy in my analysis. Somebody was bitching the other day, like, when you did your Twin Peaks analysis, you just got shit from Rob Ager. Are you aware that when you write in academia, you source it in a footnote? And if you read my chapters, I cited Rob Ager in the footnotes. That's how analysis works. No one analyzes something or writes in a professional or academic setting and makes it all up on the spot, knowing everything on their own. Everyone reads other people's research, and then you write in the footnotes where you got it. That's what everyone does, dummy. There's no such thing as somebody who just like fresh comes to some great work of art and like knows it all right away and decodes it without looking at tons and tons and tons of secondary literature. So to me, it was just like the stupidest comment I've ever heard. Just these absolutely ignorant, just goobers. Never written a college paper, no idea what it. All you do is cite your sources, dummy. And everyone has to do that. Do you think David Lynch like didn't watch anyone else's movies and he just raw, fresh, just started putting out movies as if they're not influenced by Tibetan Buddhism, Transcendental Meditation, and all the other tons of directors that he's talked about that he likes? Of course, this is idiotic. But recurring features that we see in David Lynch films are things like the flickering light. That's happening when there's a demonic, dark spiritual presence, or even something otherworldly that's being invading our reality. We see this in Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, when Chris Isaac and Kiefer Sutherland arrive at the diner at the very beginning. The lights are flickering, and we see other Twin Peaks characters popping in and out there as well. People from other dimensions, the logsmen, the woodsmen, I should say, pop up there. We have the flickering lights when Justin Theroux talks to the cowboy in Mulholland Drive. So flickering lights happen a lot. Rotating things happen a lot. And the reason rotating things happen a lot, I think, has to do with cyclical reality, cyclical versus, beginning, middle, end structures of time, philosophies of time. That's a key point in Inland Empire. Inland Empire is definitely premised on an acyclical view of time, and that's why it shifts back and forth between the Polish prostitutes 100 years ago, fast forwarding to Laura Dern today. And that's key. Like, we have to understand, that's like Hindu, Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist views of time. That's not Western, biblical chronological time. I forgot what I was going to go to. There was something I was going to pull up. Flickering light. Remember what I was going to pull up. So you'll notice ceiling fans. The ceiling fans are often appearing in David Lynch films on purpose. It's not accidental. They're appearing because there's an intended signification. These also come up in David Lynch films, music videos as well, of cyclical time, right? So it's like the record's playing over and over and over. The record is a recording. No high bando. There is no recording. There is no tape. It's all recorded, but there is no recording. In Twin Peaks season 3, you get the record player out in space or in the ether that is sort of playing into existence reality, like a musical note. That's another theme going on here, and that's because David Lynch was a musician as well, and did quite a few things with Krista Bell. I like Krista Bell quite a bit. Her music is pretty good. And you'll notice all of those videos are also very Lynchian. So we'll look at one of these in just a second. I don't like all of... There's one of her songs that I'm not happy with. But so we'll look here. So the song, one of the bigger songs that she wrote with David Lynch has all the Lynchian symbolism that we're all familiar with. And how does it begin? The record player. Right, so the record player is playing. It's cyclical history. The rest of the imagery is not super relevant to our discussion. There is some sort of like monarch type symbolism with monarch butterfly. I think she looks in the mirror. The mirror breaks. Let's see. Yeah, here's the monarch stuff right here. I lost it. There's the... I just feel like this is... Here's the log, right? So we got log lady. Here's the log in the Christabel video. Where is the monarch symbolism? I just saw it. In this one, there's like some like Russian hitman who comes and assassinates her, but it's supposed to be symbolic for her heart, right? Like, you broke up with me, and so, you know, now it's like a hitman killed me. That's kind of the surface level analysis of the video. I'm just trying to find that one scene with the butterflies. Here it is. So here's her. She's pictured next to the monarch butterfly imagery. And then she undergoes a death after she's been stabbed out here. This is a very Lynchian imagery here, talking on the phone. But the other video that they did together, the song they did together, is sort of another monarch theme film where Bird of Flames, that would be the phoenix, right? So she's a phoenix and she emerges from the ashes from her cocoon. It's a very Lynchian video again. Bird in the cage, which can symbolize alternate personalities in the subconscious. And then the emerging from the cocoon. And what's interesting about the rest of the video, if you watch it, even though she's emerged from the cocoon as a new creation, as perhaps this pop star or whatever she's supposed to be, she's essentially controlled like a marionette, right? So she doesn't have free will. She's sort of the mind-controlled pop star. That's at least kind of the read that I have of this. And it just illustrates that even when we go into music videos, Lynchian themed and written things have all of the same language of symbols, so to speak. But back to Lost Highway. The flickering electronic light appears elsewhere. It announces the appearance of the cowboy, a bizarre character who speaks in gnomic riddles, a cross between Gary Cooper and David Carradine, that is the cowboy. In Twin Peaks, the light over the morgue blinks where the body of Laura Palmer is found. And then we have the visitation of Mike, the one-armed man, who recites the poem. Through the darkness of futures past, the magician longs to see. One chance out between two worlds, fire walk with me. So we know this is a reference to ritual magic and the shamanic hallucinogenic journeys, and that's precisely what Mark Frost's book ends up vindicating. Thus, in that one little strange verse, we kind of have a key to unlocking the mysteries, not only of Twin Peaks, but virtually all of the Lynch canon. It is a suspension of normal laws of time, that is the cyclical, as I mentioned, and so we get the words future, past, and the idea that the magician lives between these two worlds, the waking world, the dream state, the conscious world, the surreal state. And Lynch is a surrealist filmmaker. He is influenced by his own admission by many surrealist filmmakers like Cocteau and others. And the surrealists actually wanted to, through their art, destroy the border between the surreal, the waking state and the dream state. That is the purpose of surrealism, is to remove the veil between those two, to the extent that even the artist might believe that there is no longer that veil and that they are in a waking dream state. Even in Dune, we get this: the sleeper must awaken, the awakened, the waking dream. Thus, the entire canon and corpus of Lynch is a dreamlike hallucinatory set of images that do actually contain quite a bit of consistency over the different decades and narratives. They're taking place all over the fourth dimension, and this is Lynch's appeal as a director, and it's what makes his films frustrating for most film goers. His realization is that there are two worlds, and the artist, the shaman, the director stands between these two worlds, and that is what contributes to his aura as a 21st century, perhaps, initiate of the ministry of the mysteries. And when I say mysteries here, I'm speaking of like mystery in the pagan initiatory sense. That's the analysis that you read, for example, in Volume 3 of Sinister Forces. And I think this is the key to Lost Hive as well. The shamanic magical elements are out in full force. Fred is a character trapped in a different psychical worlds that seem to unfold and envelop other psyches. And this is where it gets really confusing. Fred walks to his front door and he hears police sirens and a voice that says, "Dick Laurent is dead." The key to my thesis is that the film is a cyclical mental prison, and that the end of the film shows who the voice was saying Dick Laurent is dead. It was Fred himself. And so we've got two Freds speaking. So, dissociation. The police sirens are the cops coming after him after the murder of Renee. This is at the very end of the film. So the very end of the film is the very beginning. That's a big record playing cycle, you see. Cyclical. As we said, the beginning narrative is the cops coming after him because he of the murder of Renee, Andy, Pete, and Mr. Eddie, known as Dick Laurent, the mobster sort of guy. The next few scenes, that truth is hinted at as Renee and Fred begin to receive the odd VHS tapes on their doorstep, and they begin to feel like they're being stalked and surveilled. They blow it off. Eventually, this leads to the cops coming, and of course, we find out, as we said, that she has cheated on him, and he eventually snaps, and in a rage, had apparently not just done her in, but actually, perhaps in a shamanic way, ritually dismembered her. So it's a very gruesome death, and the idea, I think, is that there's something demonic and shamanic going on here. And so that all comes out when he's, comes back and he's trying to get whether they're trying to be intimate. He's trying to mac on her, and we get the Cocteau Twins' famous Song of the Siren. Did I dream? You dreamed about me. Again, dream within a dream is the reference here. Fred dreams that night that he cannot find Renee, and he is immediately confronted by the strange presence of the camera that frightens him. It is as if Fred's world has come in contact with us, the viewer. We have the breaking of the fourth wall. The reason for that, I think, is that Lynch believes that there are worlds of worlds, right? Dreams within dreams. So breaking the fourth wall is this world from within David Lynch's subconscious and psyche that he has pulled out, which he thinks is this whole other potential world that we must now see as a world. We have just seen into and been exposed to a new world. And that's why David Lynch oftentimes in the interviews speaks this way. He says, I walk into a place and I have a feeling, and it's a world. It's a whole world. That's why when we get to Inland Empire and Laura Dern burns a hole with a cigarette and a cloth and she looks through it, it's a whole world, you see. When this presence appears of the camera, which is us looking into Fred's world, it is as if Fred's world has come in contact with us, and thus the coming of the man in black is what later Fred sees being recorded at the very end. So there's an overlapping of these different experiences and worlds. The meaning here is the jumbling up of these dream worlds that Fred is lost in. In the dream state, a smoke appears, a fire roars, and the face of the man in black appears upon Renee's face. The man in black is the devil, whom Fred has given entrance into his consciousness too. In Jungian archetypes and studies psychoanalysis, the house is an image of the mind. Rooms are like memories or places where within the brain where memories are stored, storehouses of memory, so to speak. Fred's house is thus the mind. his mind. And the entrance of the devil into this house is the beginning of the cause of Fred's suppressed guilt, madness, and personality splitting from this trauma and wickedness that he's committed. Fred's displaced guilt for murder is placed upon Renee. He's actually guilty, but he blames her, even though she's not guiltless. She did cheat, but that doesn't give him the right to engage in this gruesome revenge. This is precisely why he projects evil onto her and sees the devil in her face. But it is actually Fred that is possessed with the devil. It is important to note that in Fred's dreams, he walks deeper and deeper into dark hallways into the bedroom. This is him going further and further into his own subconscious, uncovering the truth of the crime that he committed and thus he suppressed. As the next VHS tape arrives, it is even more frightening, and it shows the camcorder entering the house and filming them sleep. Fred insists that Renee watch it. She is reluctant, but his insistence demonstrates that he is likely the culprit. When the cops arrive, they are suspicious that Fred is the one behind it. In reality, we don't know for sure yet what's real and what's a dream state in regard to these videotapes. But what we do know is that Fred wants Renee to feel threatened and that she is under surveillance for his infidelity. So in other words, it is Fred, and Fred's doing it because he wants to scare Renee from cheating. And so we get this weird element of like all-seeing eye panopticism surveillance, but it's actually Fred that's behind it. Or is he perhaps even Lynch speaking to the future of a totally panoptic, surveilled society that we're going into? Perhaps there is that element as well. I mean, this is the world that we're going into, the Videodrome world where everything is tracked and traced. AI is going to be watching over us all, supposedly, according to Larry Ellison's Project Stargate theory. But that's a stretch. We don't know if that's what was meant.
Sorry,
No, not you. I don't need to talk to you right now. Hush. Hush, Siri.
Okay.
Yeah, go away. We're not talking to you. You and I
Okay.
we're breaking up. Siri, I'm breaking up with you. I'm with Jamie. I can't be with you anymore, Siri. Jamie, I'm not with Siri anymore. Jamie, can you come here? I broke up with Siri so you and I can be a couple. You hear me?
Yeah.
Could you make me an espresso? We get the idea here about, I'm not going to keep rehashing all this Fred stuff. We get the famous party scene where the man in black, Robert Blake, comes to the party. They have this creepy conversation that he's already in Fred's house and Fred invited him in. And so I think that's a key to my thesis, my analysis here, that the long dark hallway is the entrance into his subconscious. At the end of the hall, he sees himself in a mirror. And we understand, oh wait, there's two Freds. Fred has been trauma-based mind control split, or he's the source of his own trauma-based mind control through his evil, which caused the dissociative split, or he was always dissociative. And Dark Fred is the man in black that possesses Fred. This causes him to split, and this is why he did what he did. And it was kind of a dark ritual event. He's being interrogated, and then... And this is where it's a little more difficult to interpret, but I think Lynch does this quite often in his films. We see this form of doubling in Wild at Heart, where Isabella Rossellini plays two different characters who seem to be the same. We'll see the same doubling actually in this film, where Patricia Arquette has one version of her with Fred Madison, and there seems to be another Patricia Arquette in the whole second half sequence with the PRON director. So a lot of doubling going on, a lot of and that's a Hitchcock thing, right? Hitchcock would do this kind of doubling, and it introduces this interesting element of confusion and mystery that we can't exactly pinpoint who is who. Yeah, we get it with Laura Dern too, right? Because Laura Dern in Inland Empire is breaking the fourth wall. Laura Dern, the actress in the movie, getting a role, but when there is the dissociative flashing back to the prostitutes in Poland and them being trafficked here through the circus people. That seems to be another Laura Dern. Anyway. Or is that Laura Dern the prostitute in the 1940s or whatever it is, right? The Polish girl. It's intentionally confusing. But whether we interpret Pete as an alter in the psyche of Fred Madison or a completely different person who perhaps has had this mystical astral connection with Fred Madison, the movie now switches to the character Pete. And so we have kind of a totally different movie. This is almost two movies, one movie and then another movie, and then a merging of the two movies at the end to make sense of this madness. So this is actually, I think, very well done. I like Lost Highway better than Blue Velvet. It's just so wild. And when I first saw it, I hated this movie. It didn't make any sense to me. I thought it was just crazy. But I like it now, looking back years later. Now that I understand the sort of shamanic and multi-dimensional thing going on with it. There's also a critique of Hollywood going on here, and this is why my friends and I, we kind of call this the Hollywood trilogy. So we have Lost Highway, we have Mulholland Drive, and then we have Inland Empire. And this kind of loose trilogy, so to speak, forms a interesting critique of Hollywood. You know, you have other films like Wild at Heart and Twin Peaks critiquing America. Then we're getting the critique of Hollywood itself. And we are introduced into this, not so much a dream world, but a nightmare world of prawn moguls, movie stars, mobsters with the Mr. Eddie character, and even perhaps satanic cults. And now this is not all explicit, it's all very subtle and very odd, and perhaps even SNUFF, right? Perhaps this event with the Rosanna Arquette character has been filmed, because the filming of these things seems to be or play a key role at the very end of the film, when we have the guest appearance of Marilyn Manson and all these weirdos watching whatever has been filmed. So Mr. Pete threatens, Mr. Eddie, I should say, threatens Pete, who is the Balthazar Getty plays a young mechanic in this second film that is tempted with a different version of Rosanna Arquette, who is the girlfriend of the mobster. He begins an affair with her, and of course this leads to a bunch of drama as Pete is enticed by the femme fatale. He ends up chasing her into the wilderness. They're going to have some intimacy there. Her name here is Alice.
I don't know what happened.
Did it not do right? Did you hit 2?
Yeah.
It just tastes like a cup of coffee. I don't know. They just do their own thing, don't they? Did you do something different?
I don't know. No, they're tricky creatures.
All right. So either this is a different character, or this is Fred Madison reimagining himself as Pete in the way that he would have lived out his life, right? With the danger and the, seducing this beautiful woman away from the mobster. You can read this either way, but it ends with them being taken out to the Lost Highway Hotel where Renee is cheating with Dick Laurent. This, I think, is the memory that Fred Madison has of where he found them cheating. So in other words, the sequence of events when Fred went and discovered this and then ended her, these fragments of memories are all being pieced together in the mind of another character. So I'll end it with that. There's more to this. You can go read the rest of it here at my website if you want to read that. But I'm going to rewrite this, and it'll be in the new book as well as Inland Empire in the new book, Esoteric Hollywood 3. So that's Lost Highway. And again, Lost Highway ends where it begins. Twin Peaks. David Lynch moves into the domain of television. And it's just so wild when you watch this show. I mean, you would never see a TV show like this on a major network. Or films like Lost Highway being in theaters. It's just so foreign to the way we think nowadays and how movies and theatrical releases progressed, to think that something so wild, occultic, insane, abstract, bizarre, absurdist, dark, you would just never have something like Lost Highway or in theaters. And I can't remember if Lost Highway did that. It might not have done that well in the box office. Let's take a look and see really quick, just out of curiosity, because I can't imagine Americans had any idea like what the heck this was about. You know what I mean? Like, nobody knew. You know, we know a lot more about all this stuff nowadays than in the 90s. Dude, normies, can you imagine normies watching this? They would have no idea what the heck's going on when they're watching this stuff. Here we are 20 years later after reading hundreds of books on all this stuff, beginning to piece all this crazy stuff together. And like a 90s normie, like, they would have no idea what the heck's going on. Now I forgot what I was looking at. Oh yeah, let's see. What did Lost Highway do in the box office? I will be surprised if this was a success. 3.8 million in the box office. How much did it cost? It doesn't say how much it cost. So, and critics did not like Fire Walk with Me. I watched an old interview with David Lynch yesterday, and he was like, I hope one day critics take another look at this film. I think it's good. I do think it's good too. I actually like it quite a bit. And let's see if it was any kind of a success. It was not a box office success. Cost $10 million and made $4 million. So, and of course, David Lynch not having final cut on Dune. He hates Dune. I don't hate Dune. I think it's good. Even though everybody hates it. I think the key to this is to watch the longer version, and nerds on the internet have like reconstructed it with like storyboards that help explain the background like for the first 30 minutes. If you can find these old nerd versions, they're pretty good. It ends up being about a 3 to 4 hour movie. And, you know, when David Lynch was interviewed, he's like, there is no 3-hour Dune. There's not that he did, but nerds have pieced it together, and there is one. So there kind of is. And you can still find it going around the internet. I think I even found it on YouTube, ironically, like the full, 3.5 hour nerd cut. It's pretty good. I actually like the full version. If I watched the David Lynch Dune, I watched the nerd cut of the 3.5 fan made version, because that's kind of what it was supposed to be. But this was a huge flop in terms of the De Laurentises were very mad about this. I would be too, right? $40 to $42 million, and it makes 30 to 37. So they lost millions of dollars on it. David Lynch, for whatever reason, I forget why, didn't have final cut on it, and so he has forever complained and said that it was just a giant disaster, and that he would never ever do a film without getting final cut again. But Fire Walk with Me was not. Also, I can't imagine this making sense to the audiences. Like, I mean, the lore of this show is just so out there, and it brings in so many different things from detective fiction to soap opera, satire, dark comedy, the occult. By the time we get Wyndham Earle, he's like a straight up Satanist. So you got like hardcore dark Satanism going on. You've got UFO, MJ12 stuff coming in with the Major. I mean, it's just all like so much weird, all over the place stuff going on. We even have some overlap with with the X-Files with the David Duchovny TRANZ character, which also in a way is kind of prophetic. But another element, by the way, of the overlap with Twin Peaks is Blue Rose. Blue Rose. What's Blue Rose? Well, in season 3, we got more indicators of what that was because Christabel plays the FBI operative in charge of the Blue Rose cases, and we find out that Blue Rose is X-Files. Blue Rose is FBI investigations of occult paranormal phenomena that the normies can't explain. And of course, Blue Rose is a key element to what's going on in Twin Peaks, where you have this pool of oil out in the middle of the woods, which is kind of a ancient alien ritual. It's an ancient Indian ritual site that also is this doorway between the worlds. And so that's the same world that the shaman, the magician, the fire walker is entering. And so because we in the modern world are so divorced from the way that the ancient medieval world thought, the way man or the way man in shamanic traditions thought, they saw the world as a network of corresponding symbols, a language of symbols. And not just symbols abstractly, but symbols imbued with actual occult powers, right? So there would be a language, a commonality amongst these symbols, a correspondence, an occult correspondence, the doctrine of correspondences, as it's called. And you'll notice that throughout Twin Peaks, especially because the point of it is that the rest of Twin Peaks, all the normies, they can't really fathom the fact that, first of all, Leland is kind of in this, loosely speaking, group of men who are into sex stuff, but he begins to be possessed and is doing unimaginable things with his daughter, Laura Palmer. Laura Palmer's supposed to be sort of the prom queen. She's the, prettiest girl in school. And she's also a dissociative because she's being abused by her own father, who's a member of this ring, symbolized by the ring. And they're basically into Crowleyan sex magic. That's what we can derive from the Mark Frost book, for example. Moral Autist sends $2. Did you ever use tobacco? I smoked American Spirits for about 5 years, and then we quit. And then I'd vape for a little while, but that was just to quit smoking cigarettes. Mark's Aid, $5. Have you seen the Japanese psychological horror Cure? I have not. Not familiar with it. Maybe I should write that down. You guys always give me really great recommendations, so I need to be more attentive to the things that you guys talk about, because a lot of times I write these down and I forget them, or the piece of paper gets lost. But Cure, 1997. So yeah, appreciate that. I'll take a look at it. It covers elements of Western mysticism and esotericism that you often talk about. Well, that's odd that it's a Japanese film that covers those elements, but I guess that does make sense. John Kell, $20. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate that. You guys are being very generous tonight. We got a lot of new members. John Kell became a member. He's a Chad member. Straight White Male, $5. I fell asleep listening to you talk about this for the last 30 minutes, and I had an insane dream. Well, that will happen, especially as we're talking about the insane dream world of Dave Lynch. Storm the Cat sends $10 and says, in Twin Peaks, when a tulpa is destroyed, they turned into a black sphere with smoke coming from it, And this also happens in Inland Empire. Yeah, thank you so much. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's all kinds of commonalities and correspondences that I've missed. So you guys can bring in these kinds of things as well that I even miss. George Lucas asked David Lynch to direct Return of the Jedi, and he didn't do it because he chose to do Dune. Yeah, this is a classic Hollywood story that David Lynch has told over the years. And I bet he wishes that he had chosen Return of the Jedi. But you know what? I still love Dune. I don't even care that David Lynch doesn't like it. If I get to watch I grew up with the David Lynch Dune. It's just, I have a giant, expensive poster of the David Lynch Dune. That's how much I like the David Lynch Dune. I also, I always wanted to meet David Lynch or interview David Lynch, so I guess that won't be possible. But I thought at one point we got kind of close. We were almost going to have an interview with Laura Palmer. That was on the table a few years ago, but that never came to fruition. But that's okay. Jay, I guess that could still happen. I could still try to interview her. Jay Dunn popped them off. I'm curious. What is your everyday carry? What do you carry in your pockets every day? Are you talking about what gun do we have? I don't understand. Like, we have I have a NATO barrel at my house, Polish barrel rifle, and then I have a fancy, expensive Italian rifle that my dad gifted me the other day, and then I have a small Luger that is the daily carry. I don't know if you're talking about like what bubble gum is in my pocket. That gum you like is going to come back. Storm the Cat. No, I already read that. Let's see. Eric Z says for $5, you must read Jay Dyer's book, Esoteric Hollywood. This is not optional. Well, guess what? There's also Esoteric Hollywood 2. And there's also Esoteric Hollywood 3. Oh, somebody said appeal to poster fallacy. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I'm not going to rehearse, everything about Twin Peaks because, this is where he's talking about Blue Rose, by the way. Because it's in the books. We've covered it. It gets especially into the notion of Jack Parsons, opening up the portal through the ritual stuff. When we see, in season 3, the entity coming out of the White Sands Trinity site explosion. I covered that in the Esoteric Hollywood 2. And I'll read a little bit from Sex and Rockets, I think is what this is from. No, this is from Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare. The reason that the Trinity site and the explosion is relevant is that the creation and destruction of primordial matter or prima materia at the Whitehead or the Ancient of Days, White Sands, New Mexico Trinity site matters is because this is the beginning of the ancient Western road known as Old Mexico, or the Journey of the Dead in terms of the topography. Fabled alchemy has always had 3 goals to accomplish before the complete decay of matter. The total breakdown that we are witnessing today was fulfilled through, number 1, the creation and destruction of primordial matter. That's the supposed atomic explosions. The killing of the divine king. This is, of course, either referring to archetypically Christ, JFK, etc. And the bringing of prima materia into prima terra. That's what is an alchemical analysis of Manhattan Project and all the stuff that's going on that even people like Jack Parsons were trying to do with the... I'm trying to remember the name. There's a whole section on this in the Mark Frost book. And I'm trying to remember the name of the site. We can look it up. Where Parsons thought he was going to open up like a demon portal. That's what's going on in season 3. If you've ever wondered about the weirdness of season 3 with the demonic portals. In Twin Peaks' universe, there's different places where these portals open up, right? So in the woods in Twin Peaks, where they call what they call Glastonbury Grove, where the oil is. That's one portal that opens up to the other side. Trinity Site was another portal, and that's why you see that demon coming through the portal in season 3 of Twin Peaks. I was trying to remember the name of Jack Parsons' ritual site where he thought he was going to open up one of these portals. It's actually, you can actually drive to this in California. Because we were thinking about Devil's Gate Dam, that's it. Before FDA moved to Montana, we were talking about going to look. Parsons Portal to Hell, this is it. Supposedly it is in the caverns somewhere around the JPL laboratory. Anyway, here's a Vice magazine article about it from 2012. So you can see, like, obviously this is, I'm not making this up. And again, the reason how I know that this is related to Twin Peaks is because it's literally listed and explained in the Mark Frost book, who wrote Twin Peaks, that this is about Twin Peaks. Straight white male. No, we already read that. Excuse me. Anyway. So the reason that, how does this relate to Laura Palmer? Well, the opening of the portals, they're supposed to be apocalyptic. And there's a connection between Bob and Lamb, because Crowley's Babylon Working, the ritual that is supposed to initiate the end of days, is what opens a portal to the infernal plane that in the Crowleyan system is supposed to bring about the birth of Antichrist. And I'm going to read from Mark Frost's Twin Peaks book. He says, the word of the law is thelema, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. He recites this as if addressing a congregation by rote, like a groove on a record. Did you hear that? Spinning record. Then he turns his eyes and he speaks to me intimately. This is supposed to be Jack Parsons speaking about the history of the portals in the Twin Peaks book, okay? Do you see? The power of the will is all. Without eros, or without agape, love and sex joined together, will is nothing but hollow patriarchal power without direction or force. This is Jack Parsons speaking. What he taught us is that both forces must exist in balance. In order to stand beside God, you have to first reject the idea of God. Then and only then will you come to realize you are God. Every man and every woman is a star. That's Parsons citing Crowley. I see. I notice he's wearing a ring on his finger, a flat green stone. It is jade. It is something stitched with some sort of inscription. Jack Parsons says, rockets and magic, M-A-G-I-C-K. The arts of rebellion against the limits of gravity and inertia, and the limits of human existence. We will only be held down, earthbound, for so long. Two sides of the same coin. He then takes what looks like an ancient silver coin from his pocket and performs a sleight of hand with it. Suddenly there are two coins. Just like in Wild at Heart, when the mobster, the mobsters and the people with him, they have the coins. Alchemy isn't about chemistry only. It is about turning base metals into gold. Medieval philosophers and alchemists knew this. Even Isaac Newton knew this. But their knowledge was lost until Crowley brought it back. This is Mark Frost, the writer of Twin Peaks, telling you what Twin Peaks is about. You see, alchemy totally speaks to internal processes, radical revolution in our spiritual development, transforming the base metals of primitive man into gold or the enlightened soul. Rockets and magic are both about breaking through animal boundaries of space and time that hold us back from realizing our true potentia. Either way, both will someday take place. So that's directly from Mark Frost. And that's why when you see the little drawing of the two mountains with that's the portal between the two Twin Peaks, you see. And lastly, on this point, I also think you have to have known and studied and read about things like the Mauve Zone from Kenneth Grant, because when Cooper gets trapped in the other world, he's stuck in the Mauve Zone. It's intentionally mauve. And I interpreted that to be literally from Beyond the Mauve Zone by Grant, another one of Crowley's followers. And I also go into the symbolism of what lamb is and what mauve is and all that. I'm not going to repeat all that, but David Bowie plays a key role, of course, it's brief, but it's a crucial role in the film Fire Walk with Me. And that's relevant because, of course, David Bowie was, for a good time, involved in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. So he was also a kind of Crowleyan for a while. But what I wanted to end with was, in terms of Twin Peaks, was that a lot of people were confused about Laura Palmer, and that she was in the notion of Judy or Jowday. Jowday is said to be an ancient Sumerian deity. I'll just read this, and you can come to your own conclusion. As Dougie stumbles awake into awakening as the real Agent Cooper, the rest of the crew in Twin Peaks unravels the 25-year-old mystery of the disappearance of Major Briggs. Dougie, like Diane, we later learn, are tulpas. They are beings created from the mind out of Tibetan Buddhism. More portals are discovered, and Andy, being sucked into them, is shown visions by the giant, discovering the secrets of both Laura and Coop. Andy's visions become the key to discovering the full meaning of the series, as he sees 6, and then another 6, and another 6, and the location of Laura's imprisonment being in a world where Laura works at a diner called Judy's or Jowday's. Meanwhile, Mr. C seeks out Agent Jeffries, David Bowie, in his present form in this universe, which is as a large teapot. He is instructing them that he's already seen. You don't need to see Judy. So this is pulling all the way from Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. You don't want to talk about Judy. Jowday, the ancient Sumerian Mesopotamian deity. Mr. C has apparently slept with Audrey and has driven her insane, we later discover, while Laura's mom is fully possessed by what appears to be a demon called Judy or Jowday. Perhaps Laura's mom is now Jowday. Following the awakening, Cooper, and the destruction of Bob, Cooper decides that he can enter the portal and find Laura, who has been stuck in a time loop and imprisoned by Jowday. Jowday was instructed by the agent Cole, David Lynch. Jowday, we are instructed by David Lynch, who plays the agent Cole character, is the ancient Sumerian demoness form of Baal in what was called a Blue Rose case. And so the Blue Rose case, going back to Chris Isaac and Kiefer Sutherland, later on Krista Bell, is the investigation of the demoness Baal possessing Laura Palmer's mom. Mark Frost's book says, in stories from ancient Sumerian mythology dating to about 3000 BC, Jowday is the female form of Utuku, an escaped wandering demoness that feeds on human suffering. Garmin Bozia. It was said that the female and the male form is Baal, ever married while, I can't, maybe I meant to put, maybe that's a typo, never married while on earth, the union would produce an even more malevolent being that would hasten the end of the world. And so perhaps Laura Palmer is the end of the world. Some people have argued that. And so Laura Palmer's the apocalypse. I don't know. What do you guys think? But that's definitely the meaning of Jowday. Do you have any thoughts on Twin Perfect's popular YouTube video theory, Twin Peaks Actually Explained? I have not watched that, so I can't speak to somebody else's analysis. I mean, if they are working from the Mark Frost book, then it's probably going to be the same type of analysis that you hear from me. But I don't know, so I can't speak to that. I mean, once I wrote my stuff and then I saw that Mark Frost pretty much vindicated all that, I didn't go too deep into a bunch of other people's Twin Peaks material, but I did go deep into other people's Inland Empire material. So let's look at, for example, this video, which I thought was really well done. I'm not familiar with this guy. He doesn't have many subscribers, but this video did pretty good. And we'll look at just a second of this.
Weird for the sake of being weird, he replies by saying,
No, you never do that to an audience.
he holds the belief that clues are beautiful because we're all detectives who mull things over and then figure things out.
And that's true. David Lynch says this all the time, that we are detectives and we love to piece together stories and figure them out. So with that mindset, it doesn't make sense that Inland Empire, for example, would be something completely nonsensical.
He says the fans don't need him to help them out in figuring out his films, and that the beauty is in doing it for yourself, while telling the audience the meaning robs them of the joy of thinking and feeling it through to come to a conclusion by one's own merits. In the case of most films, it is practically impossible to have all the answers. Sometimes people look too much into small details that are just the product of randomness, or were chosen with no reason in particular, like the blue box and the key from Mulholland Drive, for example. Other aspects are based on real-life experiences, like the...
Now, you'll get these quotes where I don't know what that means. I don't know what the blue box with the blue key is, or whatever, from Mulholland Drive. I theorized in my book that that's another dissociative, multiple personality thing going on. And we didn't talk about Mulholland Drive tonight, but that is also in Esoteric Hollywood 1. So, I mean, again, it's a thing that we've talked about so often that I didn't feel the need to kind of go through that again. If you do want to read my analysis, you can get Esoteric Hollywood 1, which has Twin Peaks and Mulholland Drive, and then Esoteric Hollywood 2 has Twin Peaks Season 3 and Fire Walk With Me. Really long, in-depth analyses. I went pretty deep on Season 3 in my second book. And, of course, Inland Empire and Mulholland Drive, Lost Highway, and maybe some Blue Velvet will be in Esoteric Hollywood 3, which will be out in a couple months, most likely. I've got 320 pages right now, so...
The intercom scene from Lost Highway, or visitor number 1 introducing herself as a new neighbor. In summary...
I'm not going to play this whole video. I'm just pointing out that this guy, I did watch his video a few months ago. He went really deep into it. We're going to skip over here to the spirituality of Inland Empire. I think this is the key, and why this guy got it right.
The original story was about a couple of married lovers who had an affair, were caught by their spouses and then murdered by each other's spouse. Before the female lover is killed, she prostitutes herself to survive after being thrown out of her husband's house. While reincarnation isn't mentioned explicitly, the concept is implied with many characters being shown to have lived a previous life.
Yes, so here we have the Hindu, or perhaps still Tibetan Buddhism notions of reincarnation. That's a key element to how it can be, characters in different generations linking up with their past lives.
Lynch has stated in the past that he believes in reincarnation, and the whole film is known to be plagued with displays of Lynch's spiritual beliefs. Before some screenings of the film, he likes presenting a quote from one of the most important Hindu texts, referencing how...
What did I say? Hindu text.
Even though the Polish folktale is an invention by humans, they end up living in it and not knowing how to get out. He also used the quote in Twin Peaks.
We're like the dreamer. Dreams then lives inside a dream.
I forgot there was a Monica Bellucci cameo in season 3 of Twin Peaks.
We are like the dreamer who dreams and then lives inside the dream.
We are like the dreamer who dreams and then lives inside the dream.
The people living in the film make up their own stories and then live inside them. Thus, the stories become their lives.
What do we say about Fred Madison? Exactly.
That's why the curse of the story consists in the actors ending up trapped inside their characters' lives, thus dreaming and moving along in their dreams. Stories are metaphors for lives. Retold stories are lives lived more than once. The variations between each story represent the differences between one life and the next. Some things remain intact, while others change. For example, originally the male lover's wife was the infertile one.
Keep in mind too, and this guy doesn't mention anything conspiratorial, which, for example, when we did the Eyes Wide Shut deep dive analysis breakdown, when I first put that out, by the way, I was the first one to really go into the deep Eyes Wide Shut conspiracy analyses. No one else had done that. I wrote my analysis, really long, in-depth analysis, 2010. And that's what led to me eventually making the video and putting that chapter in the first book. And that's how we were talking about all of the Epstein-style stuff way before Epstein, right? I mean, I wrote this stuff in 2010, 2011, 2012, and then it made it into the book by 2016, Eyes Wide Shut. And I was pointing out that, like, this is telling us what they really do. This is what they're all up to, right? That kind of stuff. And I was drawing attention to the Crowley stuff, right? So, I'm not saying I was the first to talk about Crowley in Hollywood. Other people had done that. But applying it specifically to these certain films was something that we've been doing for a long time over here. And we were spot on all this stuff.
But in the remake, is the female lover's husband.
I know it for a fact. I can't father children.
Now, the reason we're watching this is primarily to get those quotes about the Hindu text and then this next section.
This concept of different variations of the same story is introduced by visitor number 1.
The variation.
She also introduces the marketplace and the palace, two concepts used by Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, an Indian guru of whom Lynch was known to be a big disciple.
So Lynch is a disciple of this Hindu yogi. Hence, obviously, the transcendental meditation. But this notion of marketplace and palace is a key to decoding Inland Empire because there's this sort of pathways between these two realms.
The marketplace refers to the problematic limits of ordinary, domestic and public transactions. It's a level of reality at which illusions of stability are promoted by our culture. In other words, it's our day-to-day lives where we can easily get lost on our way to the palace. It expresses the inefficiency of mundane daily matters that do not help us reach the palace, but on the contrary drive us away from it by distracting us. In the film, the marketplace is represented as having several dimensions or worlds. They are all connected by an old abandoned stairway with red handrails, which acts as a kind of portal between these dimensions.
So you notice that had you not known the Hindu themes and motifs and metaphysics, it would be impossible then to decode Inland Empire. Let me skip ahead, see if he talks about the palace here. Let's see.
Disregarding being who lives in Pomona has a blonde wig. She has a pet monkey.
According to Maharshi, true worship of God can only start once the person has reached enlightenment.
Disregarding being from the
You must have the booger wishes to have the enlightenment.
field of devotion is taking devotion to a baseless. It's like building castle in the air. It's not possible to establish the field of devotion irrespective of pure awareness.
Anyway, you get the idea. I can't play too much of this video or to get dinged, but then we want to look at his points about traveling between dimensions and worlds.
Traveling from one dimension to another is something that many characters do in the film, including Nikki, Sue, Billy, the Lost Girl, and the Lady. However, doing it for the first time is accompanied by a sense of confusion in not recognizing familiar places.
Nie rozpoznaję tego korytarza. Gdzie my jesteśmy? To jest ten pokój. Nie rozpoznaję go.
All right, we'll stop there because there's quite a bit more I think you'll find fascinating. But even in this film, you get conspiratorial elements because not just do we have Laura Dern sort of dissociating with, being this Hollywood A-lister. We had the exact same story with Naomi Watts dissociating in Mulholland Drive. She basically ends up a crack, W-H-O-R-E. And she was supposed to be the next big thing in Hollywood, right? That's kind of the point of the film. She wins this dance contest. She goes to Hollywood. She's going to be a star. And she ends up a crack, W-H-O-R-E. And we kind of have the same imagery with the Laura Dern character, because at the end of the film, Laura Dern's wandering around on the streets like a fentanyl zombie, hanging out with like other addicts, spouting gibberish, but there's actually meaning to the gibberish that they spout. And this guy's video, I think, is good for that. But the I just went blank. Not Julianne Moore. It's on the tip of my tongue. The famous brunette actress who has a minor role, also being insane in the film. She spouts a bunch of conspiracy stuff. Maybe she's just supposed to be Julia Ormond, excuse me. Maybe she's just supposed to be like a paranoid street schizophrenic. But she talks about them poisoning the skies, dropping poison from the skies. Is that a reference to geoengineering? Perhaps it's an odd reference thrown in for Julia Ormond to talk about. But Dave says for $1, I'm not sure if he recommended the book to new Orthodox believers, but I'm reading Theosis, the True Purpose of Human Life. I'm not familiar with that book. Isn't the idea of becoming your own God Antichrist? We do not become our own God. We become like God by participating in grace, which Jesus says in John 17 is the glory of God. He calls us to a participation in that grace and glory, whereas what apotheosis is man becoming his own God. So that's not what the Orthodox believe. So I enjoyed David Lynch films growing up. I enjoyed stuff. I have like some David Lynch books, multiple books that relate to David Lynch and books about him. And, he's one of my favorite directors. I will definitely miss David Lynch, some of my favorite movies. And definitely oddballs. Dune is one of the favorites. And we did, by the way, for those that are curious, Dune is also in Esoteric Hollywood too. And when I did the Esoteric Hollywood analysis of Dune, it's still pretty good, but there's a lot I didn't know because I had not read Dune Messiah, which we did a whole breakdown of Dune Messiah. It's a really deep, fascinating story. Dune is really the best I'm not a huge sci-fi person, but C.S. Lewis Space Trilogy and Dune, that's like the only good sci-fi ever. But if you are interested, I did do a breakdown video-wise of Dune 6 years ago.
We are Book of the Month.
So I'll give you guys the full Dune breakdown. And then if you want a more informed, modern analysis of Dune that takes into account the insights from Dune Messiah that I didn't know, you can look on my channel for, let's see, I think there's at least 2 videos that discuss this. Dune and Dune Messiah explained deep dive from a year ago. This goes a lot deeper. And then there's this one here. Dune 2 and the History of the OSS CIA is another related video. So we haven't forgotten Dune. I know people wanted me to talk probably about Elephant Man or Eraserhead or Straight Story. And that's all cool and whatnot, but it doesn't really fit within the esoteric analysis. I'm not saying they're bad movies, and I'm sure you could say Eraserhead has kind of weird elements that you can analyze. But I mean, for example, you'll find in Eraserhead, I think you have like the picture of the nuclear blast that comes up in, you know, Agent Cole's office in season 3. So I need some water. My mouth's getting dry. I've still got a little bit of a cold. Yeah, Virginia Madsen should have had a bigger role in that film, shouldn't she? She wasn't in it for very long. But I think that's the problem, is that, you know, people, because the the theatrical release of Dune is still like 2.5 hours, and like normies and normies could not figure out this massively complicated weirdo plot, right? Like, I mean, I don't know how Denis Villeneuve is going to be able to make Dune Messiah. I mean, good luck. I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be good, and I think it will be, because I think he did a phenomenal job with Dune 1 and 2, which is just Dune. But Dune 3, which will be Dune Messiah, I mean, bro, that's a crazy novel. I don't know how they're going to make that the crazy ass novel into a movie, but we'll see. We'll see. I hope so. I hope it'll be good. Dave says for $1, I bought the MI6 Stephen Dorrell book, Secret Agent 666. I bought the Gold Spies book, the John Dee book. I bought Trilaterals Over Washington. That's an old school one. Aquarian Conspiracy, Memoirs of David Rockefeller. I bought Fabian Freeway. I bought Keyless Blood. Can you tell me where you made a video of a few of those that I haven't, a few of these books as I haven't read? I mean, I've got like 60 book analyses of the global elite. So I don't know if you mean that you have read all of those and where's the rest, or if you mean where are the videos of the ones you listed. I mean, you're just gonna have to go to my channel, and I mean, I have playlists which have most of them. So if you scroll down here to on the main page, Writings of the Elite, like right there is Secret Destiny of America, Manly P. Hall. Right there, the first one is the Jacques Attali book on the Millennium. Fritjof Capra, Turning Point is one of them. Julian Huxley's Philosophy of Globalism. I think this one is Terence McKenna. There you've got 2 videos on Quigley's other book, Anglo-American Establishment. This is History of the CIA and Religion with the Dune imagery there. This is the Boer book on the history of SC espionage. So you click on this, and it's a giant playlist. So I'm not being mean to you, Dave, or rude. I just don't understand why people, like, they don't know what playlists are. I mean, like, this has been on my channel for like 10 years. I'm not fussing at you. I'm saying people are always asking these questions. And it's like, man, why do you think I made these playlists? So they're all right here. This is the Wim Hof book. This is Gateway Process Analysis. This is Johan Ratia's book. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document. This is Klaus, Tibetan Book of the Dead, Tim Leary. Wim Hof's book. H.G. Wells' book. Terence McKenna's book. Brzezinski's books. This one is Ghost in the Machine, Arthur Kessler. Bertrand Russell, H.G. Wells, Bertrand Russell, Edward Bernays, Frankfurt School, Aquarian Conspiracy, Jacques Attali, History of DARPA, H.G. Wells, M. Kelter book, and it's all right here. Charles Galton Darwin right here. Devil's Game. And this is going back like 8 years right here. Alex Abaya, Dark Secrets of the Rand Corporation. I made a whole mini documentary right there. CIA and religion. Arthur Kessler right here. Grand chessboard. There's a giant playlist right here. Twin Perfect's core theory is that Twin Peaks is a meta commentary on TV and violence. That's pretty weak, dude. I mean, the Mark Frost book says it's esoteric, SEX magic, Crowley stuff. So I'm right. I beat him. Also, for those that like this kind of analysis, there's a playlist called Esoteric Hollywood, right here. And you can click on that. And lo and behold, look at this. Endless podcasts on movies going back 10 years. Look at all that. So if you like this, look at this. We did a Twin Peaks breakdown right here 8 years ago. By the way, I have a whole breakdown video mini documentary of Mulholland Drive too. Forgot about that. So for those who want that, I did that as well. Well, rest in peace, David Lynch. It's right here. This is my old Lost Highway analysis from, that's literally 10 years ago. This one is 6 years old. I'll put it in the chat for you guys. So there's that. Otherwise, shout outs to, I think we got some new members here. Skyscraper Philosopher. I thought he became a member. But we did get 14 new members tonight from the stream. Welcome all you members. If you're new to the members section, what you do is you come over here and on my members tab, I have added some new things. I'll do some more either today or tomorrow. I added the part 2 of the Pagan Renaissance Occult Rome from our trip to Rome. I added the discussion with Matthew Arrett. I added the part 2 of Religion and Espionage. I added the part 2 of Dune and Religious Manipulation, the Trinity and the Torah part 2, How the Left Took Over part 2, and the Black Gold Spies part 2 from a week ago. And then this is all old stuff from 5 years ago. But I will be making more things accessible to the members. And, of course, everything that's over there is also on the website. So if you're a website member, you don't have to join here unless you just want to sponsor me and support me in some additional way. But shout out to the guy who sent the $500 super chat. That was really generous of you. Appreciate that. We got another one from Dave. I appreciate it. I'm only 22, but I have the mind of a boomer. We'll just remember that pretty much everything is accessible here. You can also search the website. The website has a search function as well at jaysanalysis.com. And if you want copies of Esoteric Hollywood, I still have those. And if you want to start reading 1 and 2 before part 3, you don't have to read one. They're independent. They don't have to go together. They're film analysis books, so they don't have a narrative that requires you to read part 1. But you can get signed copies over here in the shop, as well as Jamie's books. What? And also head on over to Jamie's channel, because I'm gonna close up this episode, and Jamie is doing a show, or she's playing a show that she did on history of Freemasonry and Sirius. So y'all head on over here to Jamie's channel. I'll drop this in the chat for you guys, and be sure and hit like and share, and let me know what you guys think about